Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening if you're watching us from Greece or foreign lands. It is your team news reaction video. The teams have just dropped ahead of tonight's Europa League match in Greece between Olympiacos and Rangers. And there's some big news to digest. James Tavernier has been dropped to the bench with Dujon Sterling coming in his place. Joshua Barry joins us. It looks like you're live from the press room, Joshua.
Yes, I am, Derek. So you can hear me instead of me shouting over the music. But atmosphere is, as you would expect, kind of already loud just over an hour before kickoff. And interesting team news, I think it's fair to say.
Yep. Let's look at the team then. We'll fire up on the screen. We'll get rid of that little tag breaking news headline. There we go. So Rangers will line up. Butland in goal. A back four of Dujon Sterling, John Souttar. Robin Proper returns to the back line. And Jefte, the midfield, as expected, Baron Raskin and Diomande, with Cherny and Bayrami either side of Cyril Dessers. Now, on the bench for Rangers this evening, they go with Liam Kelly, of course, the substitute goalkeeper. Then Tavernier, Ridvan is on the bench. Dowell, Casson-Weir, Joe Balogun, Igaman, McGosland, Fraser, McKinnon, Rice, and Zach Lovelace. Right, Joshua, what's your thoughts on tonight's team? We all said we wanted Dujon Sterling to start. That being said, I did not expect him, the manager, to go with Dujon at right back, but he has done. I think that's a big call, as is Robin Proper coming back in.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily, or we kind of mentioned that Proper could come back and maybe it'll be a game that suited him a little bit more, Derek, than the couple of domestic fixtures he's somewhat struggled in recently. And the right back position is the only place to start and probably the only thing we'll talk about before the match. Obviously, it's Dujon Sterling's opportunity, not his only game. You know, he's obviously going to have more than one game, but it feels significant. It's the first time in a long time that James Tavernier has been dropped. If you go back to even when Nathan Patterson was pushing him for a start in Jersey a few years ago, it was a different time in Tavernier's career. He was very much in his peak. And to I guess, regurgitate what we've spoken about over the last few days, I think in isolation it's the right decision. Now, Sterling, we don't know how he'll perform tonight. Clement was obviously speaking yesterday about the fact that he's not sure if he's ready to play 90 minutes back-to-back. But he's a right-back who's never played at right-back for Rangers. And Tavernier obviously being 33, Clement's spoken in pre-season about the need to rotate him. That hasn't happened. His form hasn't been great over the last couple of weeks, and he was taken off early at the weekend. So I think it is the logical decision. It gives Rangers a bit more, a few more legs at right back as well. But it does feel significant. I'll put it back to you about kind of the overall optics of it, because we've not seen this happen before. It'll be interesting to see what Philippe Clement has to say, speaking about the decision post-match. I'm sure he'll point to the fact that in pre-season he said Tavernier would have to be rotated, and it probably takes him out the limelight a little bit as well. It probably takes a bit of pressure off Philippe Clement, because if he'd played James Tavernier and Tavernier hadn't performed well, then I think that decision would have very much been held up in front of him. If he plays Dujon Sterling and Sterling doesn't have the best of games, then I think you can kind of say, well, that was a player that everyone was calling for to play. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Sterling does. I think it should be the start of him getting a few games in a row, as opposed to just a one-off occasion. But it does feel significant that it's happening tonight in the Europa League, in a competition that generally James Tavernier has been on the right side of more often than not. Only a couple of years ago he was leading his team to the final, but it's not a couple of years ago now. It's clearly a position over the last couple of weeks that does need evolved, that does need a bit of freshness to it. And tonight Clement's made what is a big decision.
Yeah, he has. I'm pleased he has gone with Dujon Sterling. Rangers need athleticism, energy in there, because Olympiacos, I'd imagine, would have been looking at Rangers' right-hand side and targeted that. I'm sure they will still have a go. So it's a big night for him. I hope he comes through with flying colours. He's waited a long time to get the nod at right back, and I think he did well when he came off the bench in the weekend, and certainly deserves a starting slot. Now, the manager did say yesterday, when you asked him but whether he's able to play 90 minutes, he isn't. So I fully expect James Tavernier to come off the bench at some point, or even Cashin Wearshaw, who's an option on the bench as well. So it will be intriguing to see how he gets on. Robin Cropper, another bit of a surprise. Johnny touched on, and we touched on it this morning as well. Joshua, it wasn't a big surprise to see him coming back in. European football probably suits him more than Scottish football. It's still a big night for him. Olympiacos have got a very good striker. I'll fire up their team lineup shortly, but they've got a Moroccan lad up there who's pretty prolific in front of goal. Proper and Sousa need to be bang on it from the off.
Yeah, they do, and obviously Proper's kind of been taken out the limelight a little bit over the last couple of weeks. We've just been speaking about that with Tavernier, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. I think you actually, hypothetically, if Clement had kept Proper in the team the last couple of weeks, when he'd started his Rangers career, I think fine enough. He hadn't had big errors and he'd looked relatively comfortable. He had a bad couple of games. You take him out and then you put him back in because he is going to have a part to play this season. He's not someone that Rangers have signed up to a 4-year deal and tied themselves into to keeping them at Ibrox well beyond his peak, but he has been signed for a purpose, and as you say, maybe this is the type of game that will suit him a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see how he performs alongside John Souttar, because, and perhaps, Derek, it's just the fact that if you put Cassim Wearshaw in there, it would have been a relatively inexperienced defence. And I know Dujon Sterling isn't an inexperienced player, but he's not played right back much for Rangers. You don't have the usual player there in James Tavernier. Chefty's still 20 years old. He's still young, although he's played almost every minute this season. And John Souttar, again, is 28. But if you were to put Cassim Wearshaw in there, who hasn't played lots of games at centre-back for Rangers, he's only really done the odd sub-appearance here or there. Maybe Clement just thought it was the night for Proper's experience and to come into that defensive unit. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does, because there'll be scrutiny on his performance after he was hooked against St Mirren a couple of weeks ago. But I reckon that Clement's thought that I know Ridvan's back on the bench, so you probably don't need Cassim Wearshaw for cover at right back or left back. But given that he hasn't started that many games in that position so far, he opts for the experienced defender that he signed there this summer.
Yeah, are you surprised to see Ridvan on the bench?
A little bit, yeah. Well, I just wanted a couple of days away, maybe. Well, I think. Listen, we know what Ridvan is. It's fair to call him an injury-prone player since he came to Rangers, and his recovery's been a little bit longer than perhaps hoped. Coming back from this injury, that he was stretchered off at home in the game against Dynamo Kyiv, wasn't he? Or at Hampden against Dynamo Kyiv, and he's not been seen since. Yeah, and he's not. It's not been a recovery where he's come back and he's been in full training and right away he's come back into the team. It's been a little bit more complicated than that. Now we're nearing we're past October into November, aren't we? I think, and he finally comes back into the fold. So it gives Clement a little bit more depth in that position. There's not an abundance of options on the bench if you're looking at the centre of the park. You've obviously got Egerman and Lovelace up top. Bailey Rice is there. Cole McKinnon is there, but it's still a bench that's missing the likes of Danilo and Oscar Cortez, which makes it look a little bit weaker. So don't expect to see Ridvan tonight. I'll be very surprised if he is thrown in for his first minutes in this fixture, but a positive for Clement that he's back in contention heading into the weekend against Hearts as well.
Yep. There's a comment I wanted to flag up here because Jack Butland's got the captain's armband tonight, and John says, never liked the idea of a keeper being captain. How can he influence the forward players? There's been notorious keepers down the years that have done well as captain of the respective teams. I remember Dino Zoff won the World Cup with Italy, did he not? Back in the day, there's been others as well. Oliver Kahn used to be the captain at Bayern Munich. I think Emmanuel Neuer also did. Gigi Buffon, was he a captain as well? So Peter Schmeichel was captain at times for Manchester United. Is that a big concern for you, having a goalie as a captain? Would you rather an outfield player, Joshua?
You know me well enough now, Derek, to know that these type of things don't particularly put me up or down. I don't think it matters that much. I think it's a very British, quite a unique British view of what the captaincy is, and I I think Rangers will be fine if their captain's in goals, and Jack Butland's been the vice-captain officially for a couple of weeks, unofficially for longer. John Souttar is taking the armband on a couple of occasions as well. Yeah, it's not as if not having the armband is going to stop Souttar from making his voice heard, I would imagine.
Yep, Ian says, as a keeper, you can influence players in the room at halftime and you are close enough throughout the game. Big, handsome Jack does a great job. So there you go. No qualms with Jack Butland being the captain. Let's bring up the Olympiacos team then. So this is how tonight's opponents will shape up against Rangers. Just taking a wee while to get loaded into the system. I'll just run through the team whilst that takes its time. Oh, there we go. We can add it to the well, good luck seeing that, folks, but I'll just zoom in there. So they line up in a 4-2-3-1, which is how Mendeleebar likes to shape up his team. Let's butcher these names. So it's Lakis in goals. They've got Castilla, Retsos, Carmo, and Apostolopoulos at left back. Heze and the 17-year-old wonder kid Mousakidis at the heart of midfield with Rodney, the Brazilian. There was a fear he could miss this game through injury, but he makes it on the right. Chiquinho, who's a decent player, and Martins on the left, supporting the Moroccan El Kabi up top. Lots of threats in there, Joshua.
Lots of threats. I think Martins is the one who stands out on that left-hand side. If you look at where Rangers lost the game against Lyon, it was the two opposing wingers that they faced, and they didn't have I don't think they had the profiles to cope with them in defence on that night. We've spoken a little bit, Derek, about obviously El Kabi's the player who, I believe he's the one who scored the player who scored the winning goal for Olympiacos in the Conference League final, wasn't he? Just up the road in Athens earlier this year. If Rangers are going to get a result tonight, they're obviously going to have to survive what I'd imagine will be a bit of an onslaught early on. I'm in the press room, which is underneath the stadium, but I can still kind of hear the crowd getting ready for the game already, shall we say. Does it suit? I tweeted out something earlier today where I was looking at what is Rangers' biggest threat going to be, and I think it'll be those passes between, especially from Bayrami to Cherney. Rangers still lack pace in that starting 11, but because they're going to be playing in transition, it allows those players to probably play a little bit more narrower and where they're more effective. I think Dessers has to have an effective game link and play, which he doesn't always do, or he's certainly inconsistent in doing, to create space for Bayrami. Linked up with him really well away at Malmo, for example, and was able to thread a lot of balls through to Cherney that night, a couple to McCausland as well. And that's something that he's really brought that I don't think Rangers necessarily had in their squad before, is someone with that type of vision and the ability to execute a pass like that from the middle of the pitch. If Rangers are going to get a result, they're going to have to survive a bit of an onslaught early on. I'm sure that Olympiacos will be aggressive. That might give them space to play into. It's going to be difficult, sensing the atmosphere, sensing the occasion, looking at a team that's obviously been very, very, and a coach, been very successful in European competition over the last couple of seasons. But you would look at that Rangers team and say, generally, even if you're considering the midfield, I think it'll be more of a 4-3-3. I think that it should have the legs to cope with the challenges of tonight, even if there is still a little bit of a question mark over that in regards to proper. Can they do what they've done pretty successfully with Clermont so far away from home and start a game aggressively? They took the lead at Benfica away, they took the lead at Real Betis away, Malmo away. So they have got quite a good track record on the road with Clermont, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can replicate that tonight.
Yep, a couple of points before we wrap up. We'll fire the team back up if you are just joining us, folks. Big hello to James, who joins us from Western Canada, no less. He says, what a nice surprise, waking up just for the starting 11. That seems to be the feeling amongst many. Although Stephen, big fan of the book, says, what does Nana have to do in order to get a start? Our best centre-back. We've had a habit of leaving better players on the bench. Raskin, Sterling, Hadji, Nana, all victims of it. Surprised to see Cashin Weirjo not getting a start tonight, Joshua. Perhaps, as we touched on earlier on the video, it could be with one eye on Sunday with Hearts on the horizon.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe it's just that experience point that we raised earlier on, and Clermont doesn't want to change everything at once. I do feel slightly sorry if I was James Tavernier reading the reaction tonight, and it's a bigger question about his legacy and what responsibility does he bear compared to the times he's carried different Rangers teams and the consistency shown in this competition? That'd take longer than a pre-match show, Derek, but I think it's important to put that out there. In an ideal world, I think the Rangers right-back situation, maybe not dissimilar to the centre-back situation, you allow Sterling to build up his minutes to succeed Tavernier right-back. That should be the plan. Tavernier's fresher, the pressure's off him, somewhat because he's not playing every single game, and then he can affect the games that he does come into, and probably play games that suit him more throughout the course of the season. That Robin Propper, from what we've seen so far, is he going to be a defender that plays every single game, especially domestic games for Rangers? I'm not sure, because Cassim Weirjo in that St Mirren game looked a lot more competent on that afternoon, in particular with the particular direct threat that St Mirren were posing Rangers. Now, Clement spoke about having a meeting with the defence after that game to address the issues that arose, so maybe that comes into contention tonight as well. But I mean, Robin Propper's a very experienced defender. I'm sure he'll want to get back on track after it is a big night for him after a difficult couple of weeks. And he's also in there next to Chefty, who, although he's played a lot of football so far this season, he's still a young player as well, and this is still going to be a big night for him playing in this atmosphere.
Yep, that team again, folks. Butland, Sterling, Suter, Propper, Jefty, Baron, Raskin, Diamande, Cherny, Bayrami, and Dessers. Right, we'll wrap up there. On full time, I'll be joined by Chris. Joshua will join us for a little bit before he heads back down to that press room, where hopefully he'll be speaking to a delighted Philip Clement after a 3-0 Rangers victory in Greece. So, let's hope that Rangers can go and achieve a positive result, and we'll speak to you a little later on. Bye for now.